I ask questions to get a feel for what the type of job is, who the person is, and what their program is. I will also ask them if they can send me photos and an address so I can see what their house is worth. I can see the inside of their house, if there's a real estate listing, all these things that are indicators of the type of customer. So after I get some answers to these questions, or at that point, if somebody doesn't want to go through and send me photos, I've just vetted myself a customer because, okay, if you can't send me this, you can't send me your address, you can't send me some photos, you don't value what I do enough to hire me. What's going on, everyone? Have a good weekend. It was a long weekend this weekend, huh? It was President's Day. The girls had off half day Thursday, off from school Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they had off yesterday. We had planned to go away for the long weekend, but then plans changed and did not go away. So we stayed busy around here. Tried to do a couple of fun things with the girls, went out to the movies. There's a movie theater near us, an AMC. It's in Marlton, New Jersey, but they have, like, you request your seats and it's assigned seats, and they have recliners. People bring in blankets. So we brought them there to see this movie called Migration. So the girls had a fun time. I had a fun time. Rachel had a fun time. Don't tell anyone, but we did sneak some candy in, and then we bought some popcorn and a soda there. But it was a good weekend. We got snow on Friday night. Went out for a ride on Sunday, which was very cold. So we had to do some work around the club. And it was like 40 out. It had snowed and hadn't fully melted. So a couple of people said they were going to ride. So I loaded my bike up. Then nobody else rode. And I was like, well, my bike's already here. Once you get moving, it's not too bad. I was like, I'm going for a ride. A couple of greasy spots, some wet spots, but I did like a quick 30. Oh, sorry, I lost my audio for a minute. Quick 33 miles, no stopping. And I did not regret it. I was super glad that I went. It was a good workout and burn off some steam. But hopefully everyone else had a pretty good holiday weekend. President's Day, a lot of times a big ski weekend for people. We had some friends who went away. I would love to make that happen. And we have the ability to make that happen. Take the girls skiing. It hasn't happened yet. Last time I took them was actually right when COVID was circling in New York. Rachel's parents have a lake house up that way, and we took them, and it was like the week before New York shut down. And I was just looking at pictures from it. So it was 3 years ago, 24th, 4 years ago. So Selby was 6 and Tilly was 2, 3, 3, 6 and 3. And Selby definitely was old enough. Tilly was too young, and I left Tilly with Rachel, and I had Selby, and I was teaching her. I had this harness on her that I could hold her in front of me, and she was doing pretty well. She's doing all right for her first time. And I came down, and Tilly was just laying on her back down near the lodge. There's like a little hill that Rachel could walk her up and down, just crying and screaming. And Rachel was like, I can't do this. So we hadn't been back skiing with them since. Tilly was not supposed to ski, but then when she saw Selby get all suited up, she wanted to ski. And at that point, I was like, yeah, if she wants to try it, like, what's it going to hurt? And it wasn't good. So this week on the podcast, we have a listener question, and I'm not sure when this came in. I think it was a while ago. So a lot of times if you guys reach out and you want to reach out, shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com, and send me your ideas, your thoughts, your questions. And then I add them to a note on my phone. And then when I'm going through, depending on what is on my mind that week, or if I'm looking for something, I'll get to that listener question. So if you've emailed me something, it's probably in the notes folder, and I just haven't gotten to it, and will eventually get to it depending on how I'm feeling when I'm feeling that. But yeah, I appreciate this because there's weeks when I'm looking to help somebody else out and answer their question. I don't want to dig too deeply into my own life, or I just have nothing on my mind at the moment, and I want to dig into some listener questions. So I'm not sure when this came in or exactly who sent this, but I appreciate it. I did slightly modify the beginning of their question just because you could tell it was quickly written, and I wanted it to be a little bit smoother, a little bit more better. Um, but then their actual like quick fire questions I kept the same. Um, I also had another consulting call this morning with a guy who was 24 years old, Jake, and seems to really, I don't know. I don't know if I had my shit that together at 24. I started my business when I was 23, and I spoke to this guy, and I was like, man, told me he was married, kids will be in the future, and I was like, hey, he's got to be a little bit older. And he's like, I'm 24, and I was like, I don't think that I was this mature or spoke this well when I was 24. It's like, you guys are way ahead of me at this point. What else? Oh, one other thing. Last week, before we start the podcast, last week I went down to a vocational school in Salem County. Um, a remodeling contractor named Derek, who used to be somewhat up this way, started teaching there full time this year. And he's been asking me to come and see their class. And I haven't been able to. I wanted to set up some sort of partnership with a brand or a product to be able to host something at their school, right? Where like this is just my thought, and I didn't put this into place because I it didn't it. He's been asking me, it's pretty informal, and I was like, yeah, let me try and set something up. And then the holidays came and went, and he was like, hey, do you want to still come in? And I was like, here are a list of dates, and we just made it happen pretty quickly. So I didn't have time to set up the way that I would have liked to. But the way that I see this going, and if you guys have any ideas, let me know. But I would love to set up whether it was like a brand or a product, a day at this trade school where I could go in and spend the day and we could have lunch catered and we could film it to create some content around it, not necessarily for me, but for the said brand who's sponsoring this, and for the school itself to have some content for their website, for if they have a social, if they're looking to attract students or promote what they're doing, but film the school a little bit, film the shop. And then I wanted to, sorry, I have a scab on my knuckle. I was like trying to rip off. I wanted to bring somebody in, like I said, whether it was hands-on or just to come in and speak about the trades or their product or whatever it is, create like a day out of it and document it and speak with the kids and speak to the class. Again, have some lunch and just make a full day out of it. Have fun. I'd love to go in and do something more hands-on where it's like, hey, here's our product. This is how you use it, and then help the kids and walk them through and show them. Um, but I wanted to try and set up some sort of partnership to do that, so that I could promote it and make it a pretty cool experience and unique experience for these kids. But I didn't have time to do that. All I had time to was to go in and basically give them quick idea of my backstory, how I got into this, what my business looks like now, what I'm doing, how I'm structured, how I make money, and just talk to them quickly. And I I wish that I took this quote down. Maybe I could find it. If I find it, I'll post it on Instagram. Um, but it was essentially that, like, as a teacher, right, you gain all of this experience and you become a better teacher as time goes on, not because you become smarter or because you understand the material better, but you understand how to better work with the kids. And it's really tough to go in and speak to kids who are 14 to 18 years old and keep them engaged. And you have a handful in the crowd that are very engaged. You have a handful that are sleeping. Um, and I've realized how difficult that is, and how, I don't want to say underprepared, because I did do my homework and I prepared for it, but I guess, yeah, not underprepared. I did my homework. I prepared for it. I revised what I wanted to talk about. I spent the necessary time, but I think that maybe it was more like misinformed on my behalf as to what's going to be successful for interacting with these kids. And I think that it was a huge learning experience for me as far as what I would do the next time going into this. So it wasn't just, the idea was just for me to come in and hop up front and kind of speak to them. But I think that there are a lot of different avenues that I could explore to keep the kids more engaged and to resonate more with them, with regard to where they are in their lives, what they can do moving forward, and just to support them a little bit more. So I'm gonna try and do this again. Um, and I have some ideas as to how I want to do that. Like I said, I would love to hook up with a brand or a partner to sponsor this. Um, and then I would like to make a day out of it. And I have some ideas as to how I can deliver this on my end that it is more beneficial for the kids, more engaging for the kids, and more resonating. It'll resonate better with them, being that, I'm 38 years old and there's some 14-year-old kids in this class who probably think I'm ancient. And I just need to I want to learn how to connect with them better. And I think I'm a pretty cool 38-year-old. Um, but we'll see. That's on my docket. That's something that I did last week, and all the kids were great. Teacher was great. Classroom was great. But I'd love to be able to help them out a little more, as far as what's in their classroom, what they're doing, how to interact with these kids, and how to set these kids up for a successful career in the trades. I'd like to just be a stronger resource for them if I can. All right, that's out of the way. Listener questions. Here we go. I have definitely had my share of great clients, but also a few very bad ones. In hindsight, I probably should have seen the bad ones coming, but even more troubling are those borderline ones that just slip through the cracks. My worst customer or project of all time, I originally thought myself and the homeowner could be friends down the road. Boy, was I wrong. So they wanted to know basically what I'm doing to vet my clients and to ensure that those borderline clients don't slip through the cracks. So they gave me some Spitfire questions. I'll read them out and then I'll circle back on them. So they want to know trigger words that homeowners use that can guide you one way or another. Do you talk numbers in the first meeting? How many meetings do you have before you know if it is a good fit? Let me correct that. That was written incorrectly. If it is a good fit. Do you discuss personal topics during meetings to get to know them personally? If so, how deep do you go, and where's the line between useful information and the homeowner thinking you are weird or being nosy? Do you ask for a financial statement or some type of letter from the bank? Do you ever adjust your contract for clients? How to politely decline a project? I'm freezing today, by the way. It's not even that cold out. It's just cold in my office. Um, excuse me. So let's dig into the first one here. Trigger words that homeowners use that can guide you one way or another. So most of my correspondence, even if it comes through the phone, is then reaching back out and having them shoot me an email or go onto my website. So they're submitting an inquiry or they are emailing me. I generally look for like a turnoff for me would be we're looking to have you come out and give us an estimate. So this tells me um, maybe they just maybe they don't know how to go through this process, or maybe this is just how everyone else expects them to go through this process. But for me, this somewhat tells me that they're just looking for an estimate. They're not that serious. They expect me to just go out there and give them a number for free, and that's not how I work. So that's a red flag for me. Also, we're looking to get a few quotes. Somewhat the standard within the industry. That's not how I operate. So if somebody says that, I'm typically passing on them because I understand that their priority and their program is probably different than what I want to offer. I specialize in a boutique type project, a white glove service, attention to detail. So anything that really doesn't align with that's going to be a red flag for me. Right, you have to look at things. What are your strong suits? What are you selling and what aren't? So now when somebody gets a hold of me, we have a baby on the way, we need this done ASAP, or we're closing in a month on a house. Somebody saying we're not very picky, we have all the materials purchased, we just need you to do the work. We want to do some of the work ourselves. All of these things don't mesh with what I do from a business perspective. So these are all red flags for me, that basically are the beginning step of vetting customers out when these leads come through. So I'm looking to vet these customers prior to going out and visiting them. It just saves me a ton of time. I don't have a full-time estimator on staff. Believe it or not, I know you find that hard to believe. So I don't want to have to absorb that overhead, which also means I don't want to go out and have to be giving estimates for people. So if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to go out and meet with all these customers and charge for estimates, I would have to figure out how to integrate that cost into my overhead, and I'd either have to pay somebody to do that full time, or I'd have to pay myself those hours, and I can't put those costs into my company overhead because um, I remain lean and I have a low overhead, and I use that to increase my profit margin. So there's not enough fluff that I can add that in, so I just rather not be doing that. Um, do you talk numbers in the first meeting? So generally speaking, somebody's going to email me. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them a couple of questions. I'm going to ask how they got a hold of me. Um, I'm going to ask when they want the work done. I'm going to ask if they have a design in place. I'm going to ask if, have you seen my work in person? All these questions are going to tell me what type of customer this is. If they've been in one of my jobs before, that's a good thing. They probably know the level of detail. They probably know the person who got the work done. They probably conveyed to them, hey, not the least expensive. They did this, they did that. Um, Timeline's important for me because if somebody wants a quick turnaround, that's just not, I don't sell get having a quick turnaround. I don't promote that I can get jobs done quickly. So generally speaking, that's not going to be a good fit for me. I ask questions um, to get a feel for what the type of job is, who the person is, and what their program is. I will also ask them if they can send me photos and an address so I can see what their house is worth. I can see where they live. I can see the inside of their house, if there's a real estate listing, all these things that are indicators of the type of customer. So after I get some answers to these questions, or at that point, if somebody doesn't want to go through and send me photos, I've just vetted myself a customer because I asked them to do something prior to meeting. If you think, and I could relate this. A lot of times I relate things to getting tattooed, right? Where it's like, I want to get tattooed by somebody who has a fairly busy schedule and they're fairly well sought after. If I emailed them and they said, "Hey, who have you been tattooed by? What spot do you want? Do you have an idea of what you want? And can you send me some inspiration photos?" If I was fine getting tattooed by anyone, I probably just go to the next person that didn't make me answer all those questions. But if I really desired getting tattooed by this person specifically because I like their style, because I like what they do, because I heard it's a fun experience to get tattooed by them, I would answer all of these questions. So it's somewhat of a test where it's like, hey, if you're not willing to get me all this information, then you probably don't want to get tattooed by me. And I take a similar approach to vetting my customers where it's like, hey, if you can't send me this, you can't send me your address, you can't send me some photos, then you obviously don't want me to do the work badly enough that this is just a first hurdle. And I'm going to vet you at this first hurdle. You're not going to get through the other hurdles, and you don't value what I do enough to hire me. So a lot of times the budget question is going to come up in the next round of email or emails where I get the answers back, I get the photos, I ask them for some inspiration photos, um, and then I will make sure that they are okay with the price point. I used to, and sometimes I will send out the budget question right away, but a lot of times I like to ease into that a little more. If I feel that this lead is a quality lead, I don't. That's not my number one priority. It's making sure that they fit and check all of these boxes, but I understand that it's going to be a major decision with the renovation. So if they don't have the budget, I can sort that out before I go to their house. I don't need to meet with them to figure that out. And if they're uncomfortable disclosing that, then I need to establish that trust. It comes down to how much I'm willing, how much work I'm willing to put in prior to landing that job. Um, so I just try and be honest here, right? If I haven't done a kitchen in 5 years that was less than $100,000, I could probably throw that number out that, hey, historically or within the past 5 years, I haven't done a kitchen job that's come in under $100,000. And that included this and it didn't include appliances. Um, that's enough of a segue into that conversation that it's going to weed out whether they're okay with that or whether they are not okay with that. Um, there's no right or wrong. Everyone has a different budget. Everyone has a different program. There's a kitchen, there's a project, there's a design and a budget for every shape and color. It doesn't matter what your market is or what a customer's budget is. There's no better, there's no worse. It's what you're set up for. So I know my ideal customer and my ideal number for these projects. So I want to make sure that I'm setting myself up from day one to have a successful job and a successful relationship with these customers. I don't want to oversell them. I don't want to undersell them. I want to make sure that we're a fit. um, and with regard to that, right? If somebody sends me a job and I look and it's like, hey, we want, say I specialize in $25,000, $40,000 kitchens, and somebody gets a hold of me and they want a $300,000 kitchen. While that may be enticing, that's not my job because I don't do those type of jobs. I'm not set up. My sub pool isn't set up to be doing these high-end custom work. I don't have the vendor capacity to do the high-end custom work. I don't have the experience, so it's going to be terrible. So there's nothing wrong with working for or performing, living in these different budget ranges and different markets, but understanding who you're talking to and who your customer is really important. And it's the same thing the other way around. If you've done kitchens that have been between $300,000 and $500,000, and somebody comes to you and say, hey, I want to do a $70,000 kitchen, nothing wrong with that, but that's not your job. You don't want to take that job. So typically the numbers and the budget thing I'm getting out of the way by saying, hey, this is our baseline. This is where we start. And if they're not good with that, that's it's not it's a good thing if you find out right off the bat. Like, it stinks that they're not your customer, but you're not wasting their time anymore. They're not wasting your time anymore. So getting that information out there is a really important and critical tool right from the get-go. How many meetings do you have before you know if it's a good fit? Unless you are looking to land a relationship or nurture a relationship with a customer, or an architect or a designer, at least for me, I'm not typically um, meeting with somebody that I don't know that they're a good fit. I may meet with them, and that may be the nail in the head of the coffin that determines them to not be a fit. But generally speaking, once I meet with somebody, I'm fairly certain that they're going to be a good fit, and I'm doing that by all of these questions beforehand. So, a lot of times somebody's like, "I want you to come out and give me an estimate," and that's one of those red flag type phrases where it's like, what I would rather see and what would speak a little more clearly to me would be, hey, I got your name from so and so, or I saw your work online. We're interested in getting a kitchen remodel. Can you walk me through what that process looks like for you? And then it's like, all right, I'll engage with this customer because they aren't necessarily telling me, hey, I expect you to come out here and give me an estimate. Like, although that may be the industry standard, that's not how I work. And they're cognizant of that and they're respectful of my time. So they're saying, hey, can you walk me through what it's like to get a kitchen estimate from you? Or, hey, we're curious. We would love you to do our kitchen. What's that process look like? And then I could explain them to that. So that customer, at that point, I will walk them through what my basic process is. If they have questions, they can ask questions. We dig into budget, we dig into timeline, we dig into design, how to allocate different materials to budgets, and all this is done on via email. So even if I'm spending 15, 20 minutes back and forth on emails, a half hour, an hour on emails over the course of a couple of days, I'm getting to the bottom of whether this customer is a fit or not without ever going to their house and meeting them in person. Um, so I'm saving myself the time, right? Like, where is somebody going to live that you're going to get in your car, drive to their house, meet with them, get back in your car, go home in less than an hour? It's not going to happen. So regardless, even if they live 2 blocks from you, it's going to take at least an hour, if not more. By going through this vetting online beforehand, you're saving yourself a ton of time. And a lot of times you're qualifying or not qualifying a lead that comes in without ever going to their house. And for years, I would go to people's house and I would measure their house and I would get them an estimate and I would even draw out floor plans and ideas. And I think you should do this and you should do that. And then they just wouldn't call me back. Or, you know what? They were price checking somebody else. So I was just an exercise to them. Um, I got tired of wasting my time, and I've afforded myself the luxury of being able to go down this road and do things this way because I'm so small. But I don't want to meet with somebody unless I'm 95% sure that this is my job and this is a good fit, because I want somebody to hire me because they want me to do the job, and I want all of the limiting factors that would be reasons why you wouldn't be able to hire me. I feel I can be just upfront and transparent about, and I don't see a need to wait to tell them in person. I would rather get that all out in the first place. I guess if you were looking, like, the one time that this may not be the case, if there was a relationship or a designer or an architect that you wanted to court, maybe you would break this rule to be like, hey, typically I don't do this, but this is how they work. I'm going to show good faith and I'm going to come out and I'll meet with you and we'll go through this and I'll get you some pricing and some estimates for an opportunity to work with you. But when I'm working with my business and my customers, and when it's a customer driven lead, I'm typically going to follow my process because I know it works for me. And I probably um, said no or vetted or turned down customers for projects that I could have done in the past. Like, it's not 100%. Sometimes I vet people or qualify people that should or shouldn't be qualified, but this gives me the best percentage. It's not a perfect system. It's never going to be, but it gives me the best percentage for me. Do you discuss personal topics during meetings to get to know them personally? If so, how deeply do you go with this, and where's the line between useful information and the homeowner thinking you are weird or being nosy? I generally don't discuss um, really too much personal information when I'm meeting with the customer. My biggest concern, being that I'm going to be in somebody's house for a long time, I'm going to be around them, their family, their pets, their dogs. I'm going to have my team around them. I'm going to have subcontractors there. I want to know if this person respects what I do, if they are going to allow me to drive the ship, and if they are kind, to be honest. Like, I want somebody who's kind, and I don't need somebody to blow smoke up my ass. I don't need somebody to patronize me, but I want somebody to be kind, because you are going to do your best job when somebody is fair to you and somebody is kind to you. That allows me to be the best business owner that I can be. If I have a customer who is an asshole and not fair, and everything is a one-way street, I'm not going to be highly motivated to treat them better than they treat me. Um, you get the job that you deserve as a customer, and that is another saying that comes from getting tattooed. You get the tattoo that you deserve. If you show up late, if you're rude, if you don't tip well, if you're inconsiderate, if you're a pain in the ass when you're scheduling something, if you make them change a million things and you try and control the process, you're not going to get the best tattoo. If you walk in and say, hey, you know what? I really like what you do. I want to get this. I was thinking of getting this tattoo, but I'm completely open to your professional and artistic input, because at the end of the day, this is what you specialize in. I'm thinking that I want it to be this size. Here's some inspiration, but I really want you to do your thing and I want you to have fun with this. Just let me know how much I need to save. That interaction and that approach to getting tattooed is going to give me the best tattoo, because now I'm telling this tattooer that I'm coming to them because I like the way that they do this certain subject matter. I'm giving them some sort of direction with inspiration. I'm not nickel and diming them saying I can get so and so to do it for less. I'm saying, hey, let me know what else you need from me. Let me know what it costs. And I want you to do your thing. This is what I was thinking. I trust you. You're the professional. That's going to get me the best tattoo at the best price, because I'm not being an asshole. And it's the same thing for a project with a customer. I want a customer who's respectful, who's treating me as the professional, and who's kind and who's fair. And I don't necessarily need to mesh well with them personally. I'm looking for more of a personality type than anything else. And obviously, there's other things that need to check the box. But from a personal standpoint, I don't necessarily need to know them personally. I actually prefer to keep them separate. I don't like to work for friends, and I typically do not like to befriend customers because a lot of times it sullies that relationship or tarnishes that relationship for me. Um, but yeah, that's for me. It's more of a personality type that I'm looking than to learn learn personally. Um, I really, really, really need someone to respect what I do as well and not treat me as somebody who is below them. I don't want somebody who's like, "Hey, I was going to do this by myself, but I don't really have time." I want somebody who appreciates what I do, who respects what I do, and who wants what I do. That's the perfect customer, and it doesn't matter how or what I know of them personally. Do you ask for a financial statement or some other type of letter from the bank? I actually have a clause in my contract that reserves my right to access a proof of funds for any project, but I have yet to enforce that right. And so that clause is going to be within my contract. I have yet to enforce it because I do a pretty good job of screening customers beforehand, and I would like to think that if I was concerned about that from the get go, that I probably wouldn't be signing contracts with that person. And in a perfect world, that sounds great. But if you do want to cover your ass, you can have some sort, you can reserve the right to proof of funds, just like when you go to buy a car, just like when you go to buy a house, to make sure that customers have the money. And I do think that that's fair. Some people will be offended by that or say so and so doesn't require that. But if you're going to do a $500,000 renovation for someone, I would want to know that they have funding in place, that they either secured funding or that they have the capital or they have the cash on hand to pay for that when your livelihood and your workflow depends on that. You're putting a lot of pieces of a puzzle and wheels in motion running a project, and ensuring that the customer has the money to pay you for the duration of the project is really a smart thing. So I know that clients would get upset about that, but again, if they make you do that when you're buying a $250,000 house, why shouldn't you have to do that when you're doing a $250,000 renovation? I know there's not a lot of $250,000 houses out there to be had these days, but you get the point. Do you ever adjust your contract for clients? So I a lot of times will remove certain clauses from my contract, whether they just aren't applicable to this contract, or if I feel as though me removing that or me keeping that in would discredit some of the trust that we've established in each other. Um, there's a time and a place to legally be bound to certain terms with a relationship with a project. You should cover your ass. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I'm going to uphold and I'm going to do regardless. And customers are signing up and signing a contract and going with me in good faith, and they're already choosing me over other people or over a price, somebody that was offering to do this for, like, they're already showing good faith in me by hiring me in the first place. So a lot of times, if anything, I'll remove parts of the contract which are just somewhat of a one hand washes the other, or I feel by leaving that in, I'm not returning the same level of trust as they are with me. And again, it's going to be a judgment call on your behalf. There's certain things in my contract that are there from a legal perspective, but I believe that there's more important things in a business relationship. Um, my contract is fairly comprehensive thanks to Nick Schiffer from NS Builders. Years ago, he provided me with a contract document, which I'm sure it's even more comprehensive now, but this is more than enough for me. And I've tailored it to my needs. And again, I pull some things from it when necessary, but I'm generally not adding terms to a contract for a specific customer. If I were to have felt the need that I needed to add terms to protect myself from this customer, I would hope that I wouldn't be looking to enter into a work contract with that customer. So that's somewhat of my mindset. That would be a red flag for me. Again, there's an exception to every rule. But for me, it's like if I have to be thinking from that angle, I probably don't want to be doing work for this person. How to politely decline a project. We've all been there. This is tough. Nobody likes it. And nobody likes being turned down. Nobody likes rejection. I remember speaking to Nick about this. I once emails coming in. I'm busy. Somebody reached out to me. I guess I didn't get to them. Then they reached out and I was like, hey, asked the questions, got their budget. And I was like, oh, to be honest, like the email was probably too terse and it wasn't compassionate enough. It was probably one-sided and it was probably just done in haste where I was like, hey, this isn't my project. This isn't a good fit. And I essentially wrote that and it was not done intentionally to be rude. It wasn't done to be short, but I could see how it came off that way. And the potential customer was like very upset. Essentially, your money or our money's not good with us. I can't believe that, we engaged you in the first place. We dodged a bullet by getting this answer from you because I would never want someone like you working in my house. And I got upset because I was like, hey, listen, like it's that's not why. And I realized that like I wasn't going to make this situation any better, but I had to learn from it. And I remember talking to Nick about it. And we had a conversation where it's like nobody likes to be rejected, even though sometimes it may be in their best interest. Like in the overall grand scheme of things, me saying that this isn't a good fit or essentially rejecting you and your project is a best case scenario for all of us for these reasons. But that's like that's like breaking up with a girl and being like, listen, this isn't about you. This is about, this is all me. um it just doesn't go over well. It still is rejection regardless, where it's like, you couldn't do anything differently. This is me. And the girl's still going to be upset. And this is no different from the customer. So I like to look at it from, and you could approach this the same way as breaking up with somebody, but to understand where they're coming from, understand that maybe they really did want to work with you, and be compassionate, be kind, and then give them other potential solutions or options. So anytime that somebody gets rejected or turned down, you have to understand that they're probably going to be upset. So keep that in mind, and then offer to help them in some other way if you cannot help them. So I like to be very specific too, where it's like, if I'm turning a job down because they're closing in a month and they want to get started right away and their budget is low, I may not mention the budget. I might just be like, hey, to be honest, typically I'm booking out a minimum of 6 months. So I don't think that this job really makes sense to engage my services. I think that you could probably find somebody who's going to turn it around for faster. That's my opportunity to skirt out of there and be honest with them, and then not even touch on the budget thing. If they come back and say, hey, you know what, we really like what you do, if you're 6 months out, we're willing to wait. And then I respond at that point, okay, I just looked through your email again. I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to hit your scheduled demands, but now looking at your budget, for what you want to do in the space, I would I would feel more comfortable in this range. Generally, my projects are starting around this baseline and they go up from there. Completely understand if that's not within your budget or you don't want to spend that much on your house. You know, I can't really afford the renovations that I do. Um, I know that they can be expensive, and I know that they are overkill for a lot of people, but my customer base, um, this is just what they want, and this is my market. So I completely understand if that's not what you want to spend, but let me know if that works. And if it doesn't work, maybe I can help set you up with somebody who's going to be a little less expensive than me. Again, you can use me as a resource here, even if we are not a good fit for whatever this reason. I'd like to help you out however I can. So I don't want to insult somebody because they can't afford our services. So I let them know, hey, like, I know this is expensive. I know that I wouldn't be able to afford this on my own house. I'm not I'm not discrediting that, but I do want to be realistic with you that, like, this is the type of project that we're typically doing. This is where it typically comes in. If they're okay with it, hey, yeah, that's fine with us. We just didn't realize what the budget was going to be. What's the next step? Then we discuss that. If they're like, oh yeah, that's way more than we wanted to spend, then you have a conversation. Yeah, let me try and refer you to somebody. I don't even need to know your budget, but now I know it's between X and Y or X and Z. I can delineate that, and then maybe find somebody who I know works more in that range, and then send them that way. So now you're leaving these customers with a good taste in your mouth. You're not turning them down saying, hey, you can't afford me. Peace. See you later. Find somebody who's cheaper. You're saying, hey, I know this is very expensive. I can't afford this. Um, Let me help you find somebody who's going to fit your program, and you're leaving them with a good taste in their mouth. If they have somebody who's speaking with them and they're like, hey, we really want to get our kitchen done, and so and so costs this much, we're willing to spend this much. Maybe at that point they're like, hey, we reached out to this guy and he does really nice work. It was outside of our price range, but he may be somebody good with you. He actually set us up with a contractor who did our kitchen we were really happy with. So it may open the door to another potential lead that might be more of an ideal client for you. So hopefully that gives you some ideas as to how to vet your customers, how I vet my customers. I know that my process is slightly different. I know that I am not um, engaging as many customers as other people are. That's just the luxury that I've afforded myself. Um, it is not that I am better than anyone. It is not that my work's better than anyone. I just know the volume of work and the type of work that makes me money, and I don't have to kill myself doing. And this is a sweet spot for me. So I this is the work that I promote for myself. And this is the work that I want to be selling. This is the customer base that I want to be working for. If I could be doing lower stakes jobs and not have to do more of them and make the same money, I would do it. But I've found that with my niche market, there's customers who really want something specific and are willing to pay for it. And that allows me to work less jobs, to really focus my efforts on specific and certain customers and give them all of my attention. And I get what I need and they get what they need, and everyone's happy. I'm not pushing my program and my objectives and my wants and needs on somebody who doesn't want or need them and overselling them. And I'm not underselling my work. So this is just what works for me. And you have to figure out how to vet your customers based on what works for you and what makes your business run and what makes you the most profitable. And those questions, um, and those emails and that correspondence should all be creating this sales funnel that funnels you the highest, most quality percentage of leads that come in. So if you are going and meeting these customers and visiting their homes and preparing estimates, you're wasting as little time as possible by improving your chances and your percentages by vetting these customers up front. That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I like the listeners' questions. It makes it very easy for me because I can just hop on here and answer your questions and speak to my experience and what works for me. and hopefully you can integrate something into your business. I know that nobody's business is going to be the same, and there's things that I may do or don't do that work for you or not, but there should be something in here that you can take with you and integrate or implement into your business that's going to help you out. So if you have more questions, shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. If you have an idea of a sponsor for this trade school type event that I'm thinking of doing, or you are a sponsor or a vendor or a manufacturer or somebody who would want to partner up to make this happen, I'd love to hop on a call, hop on an email, and figure out what we could do or how that would work for you. And then also, if you want to hop on a phone call to discuss any of my business practices, anything that I do, personal, professional, whatever it may be, if you have questions and you'd like them specifically answered to you and your business, or you just want to hear more of my experience, shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. And I do offer some consulting calls, private consulting calls. I can tell you what that costs, how I schedule them, when I schedule them. I'm generally, to avoid creating too much angst and pressure on myself, I'm generally only scheduling them 1 to 2 weeks out. So they do fill up, but if you want to get on that list, hop on sooner than later. I have some traveling I'm doing for work and stuff coming up, so I'm generally doing it on Tuesdays, and I can walk you through what that looks like and what dates I have available, but that is first come, first serve. All of this can go to tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. And as always, I appreciate you guys listening, the support, the emails, the feedback. It really is appreciated. Hop on the website also and check out the hoodies and some of the other gear. Like I said before, this isn't necessarily about needing a hoodie or needing a t-shirt or needing a notebook. It's more about supporting us and supporting the brands that are trying to make all of this happen. There's a lot of moving parts to this podcast, and there's not a ton of ways for people to support us financially, and this is one of them. So if you're like, hey, I really want to help out the podcast, what can I do? Go online and buy some merch. Buy some merch as a present for someone. Spread the word about the merch. That helps us more than you may know. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Catch you next week.